Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's explore the headlines first. The Prime Minister has inaugurated the Nalanda University in Rajgir, Bihar. The State of Global Air 2024 report has been released. RBI has cancelled the license of few urban cooperative banks for not complying with BR Act. The Union Cabinet has approved development of Greenfield Major Port at Vadhavan in Maharashtra. The World Economic Forum has released Fostering Effective Energy Transition 2024 report. AI is creating false stories about World War II, Holocaust, says UNESCO. Let us begin with the very first news. The Prime Minister has inaugurated the new Nalanda University in Rajgir, Bihar. This modern-day institution, envisaged as a center of inter-civilizational dialogue and designed as a net-zero green campus. Let's delve deeper into the details of this significant event and its historical context. The new Nalanda University is located near the ancient Nalanda ruins established under the Nalanda University Act 2010 of the Parliament of India, with this foundation rooted in a decision made at the Second East Asia Summit in the Philippines back in 2007. Now let's revisit the glory of ancient Nalanda University. Founded by Kumar Gupta first in 5th century CE, this monastic university or Mahavihara was a beacon of learning until the 12th century CE. It wasn't just an educational institution, it was a cultural and architectural marvel with its stupas, shrines and exquisite artworks in stucco, stone and metal. Nalanda was a melting pot of knowledge and culture, attracting students from China, Tibet, Central Asia, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Burma and various other regions in Southeast Asia. The university offered a wide array of disciplines including Veda, fine arts, medicine, mathematics, astronomy, politics and even the art of warfare. Admission was highly competitive with exams conducted by trained gatekeepers. In the 7th century CE, Nalanda was known as Nala. During this time, Nalanda welcomed Chinese scholars Yi Ching and Xuanzang. Xuanzang in particular made a significant mark by studying Yoga Shastra under Chancellor Shilabhadra, the highest authority in yoga at the time. The historical significance of Nalanda was further cemented when it was declared a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2016, highlighting its unparalleled contribution to education and culture. Nalanda was not the only center of learning in ancient India. Vikramshila in Bihar, established by Dharmapala in 8th century CE, propagated Vajrayana Buddhism. Nagarjuna Konda in Andhra Pradesh, named after Nagarjuna, a master of Mahayana Buddhism, and Takshashila in northwestern Pakistan, known for scholars like Panini, Jivaka and Chanakya, are other notable mentions. Additionally, Vallabhi in Gujarat, Udantapuri in Bihar and Jagadala, now in Bangladesh, were also prominent universities. In conclusion, the inauguration of the new Nalanda University is a significant step in reviving the legacy of one of the world's oldest centers of learning. Ahead in the news, the State of Global Air 2024 report has recently been released by the Health Effects Institute in partnership with UNICEF. This comprehensive report presents information on health impacts of exposure to common air pollutants, including fine particulate matter, ozone, and nitrogen dioxide from 1990 to 2021. Let's dive into the key highlights. According to the report, air pollution was the second largest risk factor for death globally in 2001, accounting for a staggering 8.1 million deaths, second only to high blood pressure. Even more concerning, 99% of the world's population lives in areas with unhealthy levels of PM 2.5 pollution. For those unfamiliar, PM 2.5 refers to airborne particles measuring less than 2.5 micrometers in diameter, small enough to penetrate deep into our lungs. The situation is particularly dire for populations in low and middle income countries who are exposed to 1.3 to 4 times higher levels of ambient PM 2.5 compared to those in high income countries. The report also highlights how air pollution exacerbated COVID-19 outcomes by compromising immune systems and causing inflammation and oxidative stress in the lungs. Turning our focus to India, the report presents some sobering statistics. India, alongside China, accounted for 54% of the total global disease burden linked to air pollution. Nearly 50% of all ozone-related chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder deaths occurred in India in 2021 alone. India has initiated several measures to combat this growing menace. The National Clean Air Program aims to improve air quality in 131 cities across 24 states, targeting non-attainment cities and million-plus cities. Secondly, India has leapfrogged from BS4 to BS6 fuel standards, starting April 1, 2018 in the NCT of Delhi and extending to the rest of the country by April 1, 2020. And lastly, the National Air Quality Index provides the public with daily information about air quality, helping raise awareness and drive collective action. In conclusion, while India faces significant challenges, the ongoing initiatives show a commitment to cleaner air and healthier lives.
In our next news, the Reserve Bank of India has cancelled the licenses of two urban cooperative banks, City Cooperative Bank in Maharashtra and Purvanchal Cooperative Bank in Uttar Pradesh. These banks lacked adequate capital and earning prospects and violated Banking Regulation Act 1949. On liquidation of these UCBs, every depositor would be entitled to receive deposit insurance claim of up to Rs 5 lakh as per the Deposit Insurance and Credit Guarantee Corporation Act 1961. Urban cooperative banks refer to primary cooperative lenders located in urban and semi-urban areas. They could be either scheduled or non-scheduled. They are registered as cooperative societies under the State Cooperative Societies Act of the state concerned or the Multi-State Cooperative Societies Act of 2002. Their banking activities are regulated by the RBI under the Banking Regulation Act 1949. These institutions play an important role in priority sector and agricultural lending. Mandated to achieve priority sector lending target 75% by March 2026, it is also allowed to lend money for agricultural purpose. However, the sector faces major challenges like high non-performing assets, which was 10.9% till September 2023, as per the RBI's Financial Stability Report. Another is the lack of professional management and acute market competition from small finance banks and fintechs. Lastly, the growth is concentrated in few states, mostly in Andhra Pradesh, Gujarat, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu. To strengthen the urban cooperative banking sector, the government has taken several initiatives. This includes National Urban Cooperative Finance and Development Corporation Limited, which is an umbrella organization of the UCBs. Secondly, Banking Regulation Amendment Act 2020, which gives RBI powers to supersede boards of the cooperative banks. Lastly, some UCBs are allowed to open new branches up to 10%, that is maximum 5 branches, of the existing number of branches in the previous financial year without prior approval from RBI. In conclusion, the RBI's crackdown underscores its commitment to ensuring urban cooperative banks adhere to prudential norms to protect depositors' interest and financial stability.
In our next news, the Union Cabinet has approved the development of a greenfield major port at Vadhavan in Maharashtra. This ambitious project will be constructed through a special purpose vehicle formed by the Jawaharlal Nehru Port Authority and the Maharashtra Maritime Board, marking a major step forward in our nation's port infrastructure. If we talk about greenfield infrastructure, then it refers to projects developed on previously undeveloped land, where the entire process from commissioning and planning to construction is carried out from scratch and grassroots level. Let us now understand about the new port at Vadhavan. This project is aligned with the objectives of the PM Gati Shakti program. That will be the state-of-the-art all-weather deep draft major port located in Palghar district. The Vadhavan port will be built on a landlord model and through public-private partnership. In this model, the Port Authority acts as a regulatory body and landlord while private companies manage the port operations. The port will be constructed in 2 phases with a total capacity of 23.2 million 20-foot equivalents of container holding capacity. It will feature a draft of 20 meters, allowing it to handle mega vessels and significantly enhancing its operational capabilities. The significance of the Vadhavan port project cannot be overstated. It will play a crucial role in aiding the export-import trade flow through strategic corridors such as the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor and the International North-South Transportation Corridor. With the state-of-the-art infrastructure and modern technologies, the port will reduce the turnaround time of goods, thereby boosting efficiency and competitiveness in global trade. To put this development into context, let's consider the broader landscape of ports in India. Ports in India are categorized into 2 main types: major ports and non-major ports. Major ports fall under the administrative control of the Union Ministry of Ports, Shipping and Waterways, and currently there are 12 functional major ports. On the other hand, minor ports are under the jurisdiction of respective state maritime boards or state governments with around 200 non-major ports currently operational. In conclusion, the development of the Vadhavan port is a testament to India's commitment to enhancing its maritime infrastructure and strengthening its position in the global trade network.
In our next news, The World Economic Forum has released its annual report assessing 120 countries on their energy system performance and readiness progress towards secure, sustainable, and inclusive energy systems. The energy transition refers to shift from fossil fuels to renewable energy sources to reduce carbon dioxide emissions. A key finding is that clean energy infrastructure investments reached a record of $1.8 trillion globally in 2023, with 90% of that growth occurring in advanced economies and China. The top overall performers are European nations like Sweden, Denmark, and Finland, along with Switzerland and France. 6 G20 countries, France, Germany, Brazil, China, the UK, and the USA, ranked among the top 20 on the index. However, major emerging economies like India still lags behind at 63rd overall. On a positive note, 8 countries including Bhutan and Panama achieved net zero emissions targets in 2022. The report highlights how cutting-edge digital innovations like generative AI could help energy companies save over $500 billion annually. But significant challenges remain, including a lack of incentives for private investment in clean electricity, with only 6% of G20 pandemic recovery funds directed towards this goal. Ongoing fossil fuel subsidies and backsliding on climate commitments by some governments and energy firms also threaten progress. To accelerate the energy transition, the report highlights initiatives like the Global Renewables and Energy Efficiency Pledge, signed by 133 countries at COP28 UAE, which calls for tripling the rate of renewables capacity by 2030. Another is the Addressing Technology Gaps for Energy Transitions, one of the initiatives of G20. Additionally, Just Energy Transition Partnerships that was launched by the International Energy Agency and WEF in 2022 to support developing countries in their transition towards clean energy. Lastly, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism launched by the EU in 2023 is another effort in line. In conclusion, while record clean energy investment is promising, the latest WEF report underscores an urgent need for stronger policies and partnerships to ensure an inclusive, worldwide energy transformation. In our next news, UNESCO has issued a stark warning about the potential dangers of generative AI systems spreading disinformation and distorting facts about major historical events. Generative AI technologies can automatically generate content like text, images, and audio in response to natural language prompts. While immensely powerful, UNESCO cautions these systems risk inventing false or misleading representations about the past that could impede public understanding of historical events. A key concern is that AI models can inherit human biases from the data they are trained on. This raises the possibility of AI output reinforcing prejudices, hate speech, or offensive misrepresentations about specific groups or events like the Holocaust. Even unintentionally, AI could spread distorted accounts that violate the privacy and reputations of individuals. Another issue is the lack of transparency around what data AI systems learn from and how their algorithms decide what content to prioritize or generate. There are risks of prioritized retrieval of damaging false information. To address these dangers, UNESCO calls for new standards and monitoring mechanisms to evaluate how AI systems handle sensitive historical information. They call for emphasis on preventing prioritized retrieval or generation of content that may be damaging to rights and reputations of individuals. They urge integrating ethical values like fairness and non-discrimination into the design of AI from the ground up. In conclusion, the immense creative power of generative AI brings great risks of distorting understanding of major events like the World War II if unaddressed. UNESCO emphasizes an urgent need for ethical AI governance.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. The European Commission is expected to put France into excessive deficit procedure due to higher budgetary deficit. Talking about EDP, it ensures that European Union member states adopt appropriate policy responses to correct excessive deficits. Cabinet has approved minimum support prices for kharif crops. If we talk about MSP, then it is the minimum rate at which farmers sell their crops to the government. It is aimed at preventing farmers from distressed selling. National Monetization Pipeline has monetized Rs 3.85 lakh crore of assets in 3 years. National Monetization Pipeline or NMP is an initiative for the asset monetization by the Government of India. Coal India has awarded 23 abandoned mines to private companies on a revenue sharing basis. The minimum revenue to be shared is 4%. Moreover, the contract period is for a maximum of 25 years. Talking about revenue sharing model, it is a method of public-private participation projects. NASA's Mars Atmosphere and Volatile Evolution Orbiter captured stellar display of purple-colored lights on the Mars planet. Launched in 2013, it is the first mission devoted to understanding the Martian upper atmosphere. A study has revealed that evolution of the purple pigment named purpurogulin was probably vital for several adaptations in glacier algae. Glacier algae grow on melting glacier and ice sheet surfaces across the cryosphere, that is, the frozen water part of the Earth system. Noodles containing chili peppers having capsaicin were banned in Denmark. Talking about capsaicin, it is the main pungent causing strong flavor and smell ingredient of chili peppers, genus Capsicum. A team of scientists have developed a super hydrophobic, that is water repellent catalyst that can reduce the cost of producing biodiesel. Biodiesel is a renewable, biodegradable fuel made from vegetable oils, animal fats, etc. Talking about super hydrophobic catalysts, they are derived from biomass, cellulose, and are eco-friendly, abundant, reusable, and affordable. Union Cabinet has approved a new central sector scheme, the National Forensic Infrastructure Enhancement Scheme. NFIES aims to ease the workload on forensic laboratories in line with requirements of reformed criminal laws that will come into force by July 1, 2024. Google DeepMind and Isomorphic Labs have developed a new AI model, AlphaFold 3, that can predict structure of proteins, DNA, RNA, ligands, etc., and how they interact. SBI has raised $100 million through its London branch by selling 3-year senior unsecured floating rate bonds above the secure overnight financing rate. SOFR is the overnight interest rate for US dollar denominated loans and derivatives. Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Knowledge. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solution to today's quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description below.